So I'm delighted to say that we are joined by my favourite player and Ireland winger, James Lowe. Welcome to the podcast, James.
Thank you very
Good
much.
boy.
Well, James, congratulations on earning your first caps. So tell us a bit about what that meant to you.
Yeah, thank you. It's awesome, as a young fella, you always want to challenge yourself against the best, and to, be able to make my international debut, not for my country of birth, but for Ireland. It's been outstanding, and parents are very, very proud, and so is everyone, all the rest of my friends around the world. I got a fair few messages, and yeah, stoked,
Were you like straight on FaceTime to your parents after the game, after your first cap?
No, I was actually, I got filled up with a couple of beers straight afterwards, as I'm sure most initiations go. So not straight after, but as soon as I kind of got the call from Andy that he wanted me to come into camp, I rang my mum. She thought I was joking. My dad literally just sent back a thumbs up. He's I wouldn't say he's a simple, very old school. And then maybe an hour or two later, once he'd realised the significance of what had just happened, he sent me a nice message. So that was nice. And my brother and sister were over the moon. So it was cool. It was very cool.
Absolutely. Can you tell us about any of the initiations when you came into the Irish squad?
There wasn't, you hear of a lot of the old school sort of initiations that went on, but unfortunately fortunately or unfortunately, it's a lot more professional now. So yeah, obviously when you get your first cap, go back to the hotel, and you put up on your feet and told to sing a song. Mine went down like horrific. It was terrible.
What'd you pick?
I went with Wagon Wheel.
Okay.
So I thought people would jump in, but people love to see me come crashing down for some reason. So yeah, it was actually horrific, and I got sent a video of it. It's literally, I hope it never does the rounds in a WhatsApp group, because it's
really
bad.
bad.
I try and oh yeah, well done guys. Yeah, and try to get off, and Andy Farrell, he's like, no, you're singing it. You're finishing the song, sing. Yeah. So yeah, it was highly embarrassing, but a couple of pints after that, and there's no crazy initiations or punishments anymore. It's that's the professional era of rugby. So that's it.
Yeah, boo to that, eh?
Ryan, if you were in charge of the initiations now, what would you be? I'd say you have a rake of stuff already planned, do you?
Yeah, you're right. They've sort of gone out, eh? But you get a few on tour. When you go on like summer tours and stuff, that's when you can probably have a bit more fun. I mean, COVID as well at the moment.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, there are a lot of rules about it. I'm sure the boys were. They had a fair few pints after the Scotland game anyway, but I was already thrown out in the rehab crew by then, so I had to be a bit more careful.
James,
I'd love to be in charge of initiations, Christina. I would absolutely love it.
I feel like that's the
what do is you're meant to keep them to yourself.
That's the role you were made for. I can see it.
Hell yeah!
They should bring you back into the squad just for that.
Yeah, baby. I don't know if Gregor would be that keen for that. That'd be the reason I'm out.
Yourself and Finn. Boom, out.
Well, as a newcomer to Ireland camp, what or who surprised you the most when you got in there?
There's a huge rivalry in Irish rugby, and it's the same in every competition. So you don't want to like people, but unfortunately, there's no dickheads. There's actually not, like, you don't get to that level if you're not a good person. So you kind of get in, and you've said things on the field, like, I mean, what happens on the pitch stays on the pitch. I mean, you never go overboard on the pitch anyway. You get there and you're just like, man, this dude's actually not a bad bloke, is he? like Conor Murray's one of the nicest lads you'll ever meet. Omani, he's an old man, but jeepers, he's a very, very nice person. it's funny though, because a few weeks ago you was screaming at each other because he's wearing a red jumper and I'm wearing a blue jumper. You go together and you're sitting down having cups of coffee and tea and helping each other all of a sudden. So you get along with everyone. To be fair, it's a nature of the sport now.
So you sort of said that they were the ones you thought were dicks before you went in.
No. I just off the top of my head, that's just.
Oh,
what
right.
Yeah. It's always the Munster Leinster though, isn't it? It's always that.
What's the crack like in camp with that?
It's just a huge rivalry, isn't there?
Yeah, it's never any animosity towards like the Connacht lads or the Ulster lads, or vice versa. It's just always you're that little bit apprehensive going into camp about the Leinster lads and them obviously for us. But yeah, there, like James said, there was a few fellas that I thought I was going to hate, like Johnny Sexton, Ian Madigan, these guys. I just picture, like a Dublin D4 guy, and then I put these guys' faces right next to it. But two of the nicest guys, and even to this day, probably two of the lads I talk to most or keep in touch with from back home, So it's just, it's funny though. It always seems to be that Munster Leinster thing. Even in camp, you'd be like, I'm not happy that I actually like this guy,
Yeah. 100%.
James, the real tell is, mate, now that you know them from camp, when you next play Munster, that's when you know if they actually like you, mate.
Yeah, I know. Actually, I just that came to my head as well, man. Because I see, I'm the bloody centre of many, many off the ball incidents when it comes to that rivalry, and I know I can be a little bit of an instigator, but I actually don't go looking for it, but I always you always go to the line. Okay, it's never something in a review you want. It's like, well, how come you didn't do this? It's like, okay, well, I'm always there. Okay, and you want to be reined back. You never want to say, mate, you're soft. Why weren't you there? So, it'll be a good one. Maybe down on Stephen's Day. See how we go.
I heard Bundy Aki took over your role though at the weekend.
As mate, Bundy's my boy. I played with him in New Zealand. And
talking absolute smack, apparently.
Mate, he's always man. Like if you're in an empty stadium, oh my goodness, you can't. Like he's the only voice you hear. He's genuinely like, let's go, get off the line, like whacking people. But I mean, in fairness, he's like, his job is pretty much to be an enforcer and to run into a brick wall when told to. But I can definitely see how he rattles some feathers.
I think he does it in his own team though, man. Like, see, we spoke about it right at the beginning of this podcast when we played Connor, and it got awkward. It got awkward on the field.
I love that.
We were like, mate, it started getting a bit embarrassing. You almost feel like, oh, please. And the chat is that even some of the Ireland boys were like, oh God, please stop. Like you could tell they were getting a bit,
it's good to have him on your team. He's one of those sort of blokes you'd rather have him on your team than have him running down your channel. That's for sure.
Ryan, did any of the Scottish boys say what sort of chat was coming out of him, or?
Oh no, I can't.
Could you do your best Bundy impression?
No, I'm not very good at that either. But what can I say? I don't know. I can't say it without throwing anyone under the bus. So
safe to say, Ryan is a very big fan of Bundy's for sure. Well, James, so Eddie Jones described Ireland as a United Nations. How did the squad react to that?
Oh, did he? I don't know. Look, like my biggest problem with Eddie Jones is that he's a good coach, man. Like, man, if he talked that much and his team wasn't winning, that's when you can start really, really going at it, dude. But mate, he's a good coach. Don't get me wrong. And I mean, the whole residency thing for me, like sitting here, I'm just like, how is the opportunity come about that I can play for Ireland? Like I wasn't born here. I didn't grow up here. I literally came over at 24 and there was an opportunity through the rule book that I could eventually play international rugby for Ireland, which is pretty silly, like really, when you think about it, and hence why the rules have changed, but it probably shouldn't have taken that long. But sure, look, I know there's a couple of Ireland boys running around in England at the moment as well. So, I mean, kettle black sort of stuff, you know. Kettle, yeah.
When you were brought over at 24, mate, were you told, listen, this is potentially what's going to happen? Like, was that why you were brought over? Were you told, listen, if you stay here for this 3 years, was it 3 years?
Yeah, it was 3 years.
So right at the beginning of that 3 years, 24 years old, were you told you're potentially going to play for Ireland if you do well?
Yeah, I mean, I'd be lying if I said that wasn't in the conversation, you know. And I've been playing, you know, 20. Like, it's getting younger and younger when you start. I literally left school, went onto a max academy contract of $1,500 a year. You know, I thought I'd cracked it, and I'd been there for 5 years, and then thought, you know, this isn't. I always wanted to go play overseas. I didn't know too much about Leinster at the time. I knew that Europe had an amazing rugby competition that I wanted to be involved in, and it kind of just transpired like that, you know. Man, I wouldn't change anything really. I'm loving life at the moment.
You play any 20 stuff over in New Zealand? Did you do any of the age grade stuff or Maori stuff?
So I made the New Zealand schools when I was 18. I was a bit bigger than everyone then, so that always helped. And then I missed out on 20s. I missed out on New Zealand sevens. And then, you know, just played a lot of club rugby. Fortunate enough to represent the Maori All Blacks, which is awesome. Like, that's my culture, you know. That's a part of like my family. So that there was hugely awesome. And then, you know, I'd been playing Super Rugby you know, I played 50 odd games for the Chiefs, which is like in Super Rugby, you only play 13 games in a season. And that's if you get to the finals sort of stuff. So, you know, I'd been playing at a very high level. I just missed cuts, and I just thought, you know, if an opportunity does come, and an opportunity came, and I was kind of talking to them. I was like, look, like, I know people don't leave young, but like, this is an awesome opportunity. And they were it was almost like a bit of like trying to see if I was actually being serious about this. I was like, look, like, mate, this is easily feasible for me. And, you know, I just jumped in the deep end, and now I'm over here, 28, loving life, living in South Dublin. I'm one of those D4 boys that Zevo was talking about. So, yeah, it's bloody awesome.
Fair play to you. It's a ballsy decision, and like a huge sacrifice to make, leaving all your family like that so young.
Yeah, man. Yeah,
money talks.
Thanks for saying. Yeah, thanks for saying it. Yeah, everyone's got a price for at the end of the day, and you know, I mean, financially, obviously, it's a lot prettier. And mate, I would be lying if I didn't say that, you know. So, but yeah, that's the hardest thing, is not being around my family, you know. Like my first nephew was born. My sister's first was born literally just before I left. So obviously I was there for her grumpy ass pregnancy, and then her, you know, to be there was awesome. But now, you know, I'm seeing birthday pictures on, you know, via Zoom or Skype or however, and you know, Christmas isn't quite the same. But yeah, like, that's a price you pay, and you know that before you sign. It's not, I wasn't forced to come over here, you know. So but yeah, that is the toughest part, man, just not being around my family all the time. But sure, look.
All right, well, sorry,
Christina, for asking the questions. I know you wanted to ask them.
Do you know what? I'm actually so happy that you guys finally contributed to an interview.
Oh,
like this. I am so happy. See, I knew these guys were fans of you. Ryan was talking shit about you a few weeks ago, but I knew it was just because he was a fan. No, I'll move on. So, James, do you think that Ireland are a significant step behind England and France right now?
Oh, good question. I'll be as politically correct as I can be, but I don't think you're far off in saying that those two are the two strongest teams in Europe at the moment, for sure. I mean, England defensively at the moment are smacking people in two-man tackles, and it seems like every single tackle. And France are throwing the ball around and playing an awesome brand of rugby. You know, I'd say, in terms of Ireland, there's a bit of a teething process going on. There's a new coaching team. There's new players coming into the fray. But mate, this is all. I mean, it's international rugby. The unfortunate thing is that you can't have too much time. You can't keep leaning on that. It's a performance-based error, however you want to put it together, and performances count. After being in the Ireland setup, like, I think there is still leaps and bounds that we can go to really, like, it's not that we're not challenging them, but I mean, if you look at the Irish-English game, we were there or thereabouts, but we just couldn't get over the line. We couldn't convert pressure into points. With Six Nations is going to be a real telling point, and I can see it another 2 gears within Ireland when everything's clicking, and it needs to happen consistently for people to stop saying that England and France are the 2 best teams. But let's be realistic. Those 2 were the 2 best teams in that Autumn Nations.
Yeah, spot on.
Fair enough. Well, now, don't shoot the messenger, right? But Chris Ashton's commentary after the England defeat to you was that you were too big, too heavy, too slow. Have you got a response for him?
Jesus, you cut me deep here. I've been working.
This was in your email. You just obviously didn't read it.
What do you weigh?
No, I'm 106 kgs. And so I don't have any of the sort of, I don't actually listen to much of the reporting that's going on and all that sort of carry on, due to the fact that I find that a lot of the people who report on rugby will also report on the football on the weekend, and then if Wimbledon comes up, they're all of a sudden they're tennis pros, and McGregor will fight, and then they're all of a sudden they fought in an undercard in the UFC. So that's my general opinion of it. But I mean, for it to come from a player, like someone who's recently out of the sport, to another person who's just coming onto the international stage, it's so tough, because Zeeds, how you miss one moment and all of a sudden Johnny May scores one of the tries of the year, and that there could have easily been stopped by me if I'd gone back, if I'd literally just done my job, and I'd take that on the chin any day of the week. But if you wanted to really look at what led up to that, really, we got into the position we were in because I chased a kick and hit Billy, and then tried to be a nuisance at the ruck. I ran back to then turn around, chase a box kick, which ended up getting us a penalty. We kicked to the corner, and then that's how the line-out sort of happened, and I was absolutely bollocks at that stage. And that's no excuse by any means, because it's international rugby. This is what's expected of you. That's your job. And I should have been there, and I've taken on the chin by any means. And then, like I said, he scores one of the bloody best tries of the year. So, but
it's a tough one, because in 9 out of 10 scenarios, Robbie or someone makes that tackle on the edge, and you can have that 20-second break, and it's not highlighted as much. And it's a tough one. I felt for you, because there was people coming out of the woodwork giving you all this heat, and it was completely unwarranted. I thought you actually had a really good game that day, and
thanks, mate.
One like that 20 seconds, as I said, that tackle's made, and that doesn't happen. You get your breather for that 4 phases that you put in just before.
It is crazy, and everyone coming out of the woodworks, and I said, I'm not subscribed to The Independent, or I don't read all that sort of stuff, because if you do, you start getting opinions from people who haven't played rugby since schoolboy stuff. They I could have made it. That's what they say at the pub, and you read all those opinions, you dig yourself into a hole. But I mean, at the end of the day, there's so many other aspects to that game that caused, if we'd won that, if we'd say we'd won that game, barely a thing would have been said. It would have been Johnny May's amazing try. It wouldn't have been, Lowe didn't chase back. It's such a fickle game. And the way I like to look at it is that, literally, as a sportsman, you literally have an exam every single weekend, and it's not just one person marking this exam. It's all of a sudden it's the X amount of people sitting at home on a TV, they're all marking the exam as well, and they're all pointing the finger, and they've all got a voice on social media, and they're not afraid to use it as well. So, and I know that's part and parcel with professional sport. That's what you sign up for in a way, but it's the unfortunate that's unfortunately what happens.
Yeah,
So,
well put. Yeah, I agree.
Just take it on the chin, mate. Like, 'cause the sun's going to come up, and I'm going to get another chance. And Jesus, if Chris Ashton was there,
yeah, that would be a nice matchup. I'd like to see that. I'd pay to watch that now. I'd pay to watch that.
God. Well, James, we won't keep you any longer. So thank you so much for coming on the podcast. It's been great to have you on. And best of luck with the rest of the season and Six Nations, hopefully, next season.
Best of luck, awesome. Yeah. Best of luck with the injury. And we wish Leinster all the worst for the weekend, but...
Hey, good luck to you as well, man.
Champion.
Cheers,
Thanks
guys.
so much, James.